Today's story is waiting for opportunity. My name is Sam, and I live in a small village in Madaripur, Bangladesh. When I was 10 to 12 years old, there was no electricity in our village except for a handful of houses. There was an abandoned house surrounded by thick bushes and trees that had been vacant for many years. Many stories circulated about that house, but let me tell you the real thing. It was a new moon night, and pitch black darkness enveloped everything. I was sitting at a tea stall not far from my house because it had a TV. Back then, television was a novelty, so I lost track of time. When the shop closed, I realized it was 10 p.m. quite late for a young boy to be out. A few strangers remained at the stall, so I decided to follow whoever was heading in my direction. I trailed the middle-aged man with a flashlight, hoping to reach my home safely. However, they turned onto another road, leaving me alone on the path to my house. Undeterred, I continued walking, singing to myself. The abandoned house didn't cross my mind until I was nearby. From a distance, the house seemed shrouded in thick black clouds and an eerie darkness. Fear gripped my heart, so I decided to quicken my pace and hurry past it. But as I approached, I saw a reddish-brown cow just like one we owned running into the house. Curious, I followed it inside, only to find the cow standing upside down in the courtyard. As I moved closer, it turned towards me near the tree. To my horror, it had no head. Blood was dripping from its severed neck, creating a gruesome scene that made my body tremble with fear. I ran backwards with all my might, but the headless cow seemed to give chase, its hoofbeats pounding behind me. Exhausted, I felt myself growing faint and collapsed onto the ground, remembering nothing more. I awoke in my bed at home, surrounded by my worried family. Too weak to sit up, I recounted the terrifying experience to my mother. A neighbor had found me unconscious by the roadside and carried me home. After consulting spiritual healers, they warned me never to venture out alone at night. The incident seemed resolved, but little did I know a greater danger awaited me in the future. 5 years later, the most terrible thing happened in my life, though I had forgotten about that dreadful night. At 17, during the rainy season, my cousin Eamon and I decided to go night fishing in the village canal without telling our elders. As black clouds obscured the moon and a cool breeze swept over us, we savored the beautiful weather. In the middle of the Beel, we cast our nets and chatted, noticing a couple of flickering lights from other fishing boats nearby. After some time, we hauled in our nets, delighted by the good catch. However, I noticed that the container held far fewer fish than I expected. Perplexed, we watched as the number of fish kept dwindling, no matter how many we added from our nets. Suddenly, Eamon's side of the boat began sinking, as if weighed down by invisible entities. He quickly joined me on my side, but then we realized we were adrift, no longer in the canal. A strong wind picked up, threatening to capsize our boat. We clung tightly, praying fervently as the wind howled around us. Then a faint, broken voice cut through the storm, uttering 5 years, followed by wicked laughter echoing from all directions. We understood an evil spirit or jinn had ensnared us, and this might be our last day. Trembling with fear, we cried out for help and mercy from God. In a corner of the boat, a black figure larger than a human manifested, its size increasing as the tempest raged on. The malicious laughter intensified, becoming unbearable. Just then, the distant call to Fajr prayer rang out. As the azan reached our ears, the wind gradually subsided, and a hoarse voice warned, "Don't think I've let you go." Utterly drained and terrified, we closed our eyes until everything returned to normal. Spotting a boat in the distance, we shouted for help. The occupants, seeing our distressed state, brought us ashore. At home, spiritual healers were summoned, and I recounted the entire ordeal, including the incident from 5 years prior. The healer requested a dimly lit room where he performed rituals for 2 hours. Emerging, he chillingly revealed that an evil spirit had set its sight on me that fateful night years ago, vowing to harm me. Despite multiple failed attempts, it had been lying in wait for another opportunity, which arose 5 years later during our fishing trip. Only the Fajr Azan had forestalled further torment. My mother wept, pleading for her son's safety. The healer assured he had done everything possible to restrain the entity, though it remained formidably powerful. He gifted me an amulet, stating that as long as I wore it, no evil force could harm me. By God's grace, after that I encountered no further incidents. Now the question remains, why did this soul seek to harm me after so many years? I leave that for you to ponder. Farewell.